Hey guys, it's Woody the Unexceptional Gamer, and this commentary is not so much about the game, but instead is about Google, and Google Plus in particular. Quick note on the game, I don't even go for the win here, I just go to troll everybody. You'll see what I mean in a minute. But Google and Google Plus. So what Google does really well is they solve engineering problems. They're all about that. I know people with artistic bent type stuff who have left Google just because the only people that were really respected, the only way to get the kind of accolades and achievement and promotion that they're looking for at Google was to be an engineer. And everybody else was just kind of ignored. So like one example is this guy came up with, you know, the Google logo, the different rainbow thing. He altered it in such a way that it looked just a little bit better, right? It looked nicer. The colors were a little more vibrant. They kind of shined a touch, and it really seemed, you know, pretty impressive. I saw the two versions, and I'm like, you know, it's subtle, it's different, but that's what makes Apple so special, right? You know, Apple will spend a long time arguing about a single pixel, arguing about some minor little detail, and while, you know, you might not notice that little detail in isolation, as a whole, you look at an Apple product and you're like, wow, something about this is just magic, right? Every time I touch it, I notice, you know, the little light here, a little shine there, a little flash somewhere else, that, you know, this thing is just really, really polished. So this guy, in an effort to polish the Google logo, you know, above the Google search page, was kind of ignored. You know, I don't know why I'm shooting, I'm just trolling. And the reason they ignored him is they said that if they changed the colors to something more drab, they would be able to make the image that they delivered on the Google search page just a tiny bit smaller in terms of file download size. And they served it so many times that this was a big deal to them, right? So that, to me, sort of, you know, summarizes what Google is about in a nutshell, right? They're an engineering company without any appreciation for the art of this stuff. And that core concept, that basic idea of Google does well at engineering but does poorly at art, to me, also ties into almost every success and failure that I see coming out of Google. Let's take a look at some of the things that Google does great. Their search engine, man, their search engine is fantastic. Nobody complains about their search engine. The thing is just, well, okay, Rick Santorum complains about the search engine, but everybody else loves it. And the reason why, like, it's a engineering problem. They needed to figure out a way to like, you know, find out which pages on the web were linked to by other pages, you know, which URLs had the right keywords in them, and they wanted to figure out, you know, which topics were relevant to the thing that you're searching on. That is an engineering problem. Oh yeah, and then by the way, massive scalability, right? They needed to index tons and tons of pages across the web. They needed to serve tons and tons of users across the web. Now, that's something that other companies have a hard time doing, right? But Google's web page is amazingly fast, and it's amazingly accurate, and it's amazingly comprehensive, right? If you make some random stupid web page and then you try searching for it a couple days later, it's probably there, and that is amazing. Another thing Google does really well is the maps. You know, that's an engineering problem. They needed a nice way to show maps and calculate driving directions. You know, that's like a classic comp sci homework assignment. And, you know, someone was like, you know, they took that homework assignment to the next level and did their thing. So that maps, search engine, ad delivery network, massive scalability, that is Google's wheelhouse. That's what they do really well. But what they do really poorly is popularity, right? But what I mean by that is, like, if they want to create a place where people hang out, a destination on the web, then that they've never really been able to nail. Google Buzz, right? Google Buzz was supposed to be this thing where people would talk about the cool websites. It would be like a news aggregation site. It was, you know, that's what they were going for, a place where people went to, and they didn't get that done. Google Wave, right? What was Google Wave supposed to be? People were going to hang out, they were going to collaborate on work projects, on fun projects, they were going to play Dungeons and Dragons together online using, you know, Google Wave as this, you know, whatever, hangout. And when it comes to creating a hangout, Google never really got it done. And then that brings us to the core of the problem here. Google Plus. That's what drove this commentary. Google Plus is supposed to be a hangout. It's supposed to be the next Facebook. And what did they do? Well, they just didn't understand how to make something popular. Here's some of the key mistakes that they made. One, the slow rollout, right? I don't like it. a lot of websites are only popular because they're popular. YouTube is a good example, right? YouTube is, that's where all the people are. That's where you hang out. You hang out there because everyone else is hanging out. That's the way that YouTube works. eBay is an even better example, right? You know, the reason you go to eBay to sell your stuff is because that's where all the customers are. And the reason you go to eBay to buy your stuff is because that's where the buyers are. I know in my case personally, it's certainly not because I love the website itself. I find it kind of complicated and I find it dreadfully ugly. But it sure is successful. And why is that? Because for whatever reason, it's the place where the people are. When Google tried to make Google Plus, what did they do? The first thing they did is they limited the number of people that could join, right? You may have had one friend on it, but there was this really slow rollout. You couldn't see other people. You check it out, nobody's there, and you leave. If they had let the world actually jump on this thing, if they had let the whole world and say, all right, you want to be on Google Plus? Come on board, we're ready for you, then that would have been a much better plan than what they went with. Another thing is they don't seem to understand the flaws of the Google Plus platform, right? That when I heard them talking internally, right? They do Google Talks and stuff like that about what they need to make Google Plus more successful. What these propeller heads eventually came up with was that the Google Plus application programming interface wasn't, what they needed it to be for, these other things to jump on, and that that Google Plus needed to be more of a platform and less of an application. And their core takeaway from the lack of success on Google Plus was that the API, the application programming interface, wasn't rich enough to support all these wacky things. And that, that was the problem. To me, that's not the problem at all. To me, the reason that Google Plus isn't more popular is that you don't have Justin Timberlake pimping it. The reason Google Plus isn't more popular is that your best friend's not hanging out on it. The reason Google Plus isn't more popular is that they need that critical mass of other people to be on there. If they had trendsetters, if they had Kate Upton hanging out on Google Plus doing Q&As, if they had Justin Timberlake doing this thing, if they had, of all things, Justin Bieber, right, on Google Plus, pimping that in the same way that he does Twitter and Facebook and such, then and YouTube, then Google Plus would suddenly be on the map. But these guys solve engineering problems and don't know the first thing about solving popularity problems. They put all their effort and energies into the wrong place. And I just had, these thoughts and thought, you know what? Maybe this would be a good commentary idea. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. I took second. Wow, I somehow finished in front of somebody with that horrible performance. I barely even shot. But, oh, it's the knifing. I probably brought him backwards. Anyway, I hope you guys liked the commentary, and now on to the outro. Alright, so if you like this video, be sure to give it a like. 2 videos you may have missed. The top one is a channel update. I released it like midnight last night, which is rare for me. But I wanted to talk about the things that I have coming, the things I've been doing. And the bottom one is how my son Colin is doing. A lot of guys ask me about how he's doing all the time, and I'm rarely in the mood to answer that question. But lately I have been, because he's been kind of kicking ass. So I'm pretty excited about that. If you like this, you can subscribe in the top right, surprise video on the side, and have a good day.